Well, hi guys. Today we are talking about adverbs of frequency. First of all, we need to make a definition of the word adverb. An adverb is a word that modifies the content of a verb. In this case, the adverbs that we will study are the frequency adverbs. We use them when we want to describe how frequently we do an activity. For example, if we every time do something, we use always, like 100% of the time we use 100. For example, I always go to bed before midnight. For example, when we do things not always, but like 90% of the time, we use usually, because it is usual that we do the activity. For example, I usually have yogurt for breakfast. When we do things like it's normal but it's not always, we use normally or generally. Like if we will give a number like 80% of the time, I generally arrive early to my job. If we do something frequently, that's an adverb, or often, we do the activity like 70% of the time. I often sleep with my air conditioner on. If we do the activity like 50% of the time, not always, we use sometimes. I sometimes forget my friend's birthday. The opposite to often or frequently is occasionally. Like 30% of the time, I occasionally eat sushi. I don't eat sushi every day. I don't eat sushi generally or frequently. I occasionally eat sushi. Seldom is the opposite to usually. Seldom is like 10% of the time. I seldom read the newspaper because I usually read the newspaper in my cell phone. Read the news in my cell phone. Those are opposites. When you do something that you almost don't do, it's rarely or hardly ever. I rarely drink sambuca. It's a kind of alcohol. I don't like sambuca. I hardly ever drink sambuca. And for example, when you don't do a thing like 0% of the time, you never do the thing. I never smoke. I never smoke. Smoke a cigarette, smoke hookah. I never do that. Never is the opposite to always. Always is when you do the thing, the activity, in 100% of the time. Every occasion you do that. And 0 occasion, when you don't do the activity ever, the word is never. In my case, I never smoke. I've never been in an airplane, for example, because there's something that I don't do. The position of the adverb in a sentence, well, goes before the main verb, except with the verb to be. Like, I always remember. Before remember, you use the adverb. But if you are using the verb to be, you put the adverb after the verb to be. For example, they are never pleased to see him. She isn't usually here at night. Those are the ways, the position of the adverbs in a sentence. The adverbs of frequency can be classified in two kinds. The indefinite frequency, as the exact frequency is not defined, like those I explained before, and the others that I will explain next are the definite frequency, when you when you are specific about the frequency. For example, every day, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. I will explain that after that. For example, when we use an auxiliary verb like have, will, must, might, could, would, can, etc., the adverb is placed between the auxiliary and the main verb. Like, she can sometimes eat sushi. It's after the auxiliary verb and before the main verb. I would rarely ever be in a neighbor's house, for example. We can also use we can usually use those adverbs at the end of at the start of a sentence, like usually, normally, often, frequently, sometimes, and occasionally. Occasionally, we could use those adverbs at first in a sentence. For example, occasionally I like to eat Thai food, but we cannot use always, seldom, rarely, hardly ever, and never before the beginning of a sentence. We use those ones after the noun, or for example, they never say hello, they never say thank you, they have a lack of education. Well, now I will explain about the adverbs of definite frequency. Well, when we ask how often, we want to know the frequency of something, the specific frequency. For example, how often do you brush your teeth? You can answer, I always brush my teeth, or you can say once a day. For example, if the time period is daily, twice a day, 3 times, 4 times. You, for example, use a number, the word times, except in once, that is 1 time, and twice, that is 2 times, plus a plus time period. For example, how often do I take English conversation classes? The answer is twice a week. 2 times a week. 2 times a week, I can say, for example, 8 times a month, because twice a week is 8 times a month. And we can say, for example, every plus number plus time period, every 2 days, every day, every 3 weeks, every 4 months. That is, whoa, this video is so long. It's almost 10-minute video. See you later. Thank you very much. Bye bye.